All right, we are very excited to welcome today's panelists. First, we have Josh Goldstein, Sports Division Director at the Aaron JCC of Dallas. We also have Kyle Berger, Sports and JCC Maccabi Director at the JCC of Greater Vancouver. We have Mallory Shenker, Athletics and Aquatics Director at the Tucson JCC. And we have Terri Travers, Sports Fitness and Recreation Director at the Harrisburg JCC. And finally, the facilitator of today's panel, Raychel Reily, Chief Health and Wellness Officer at the Kaplen JCC of the Palisades. This should be a really awesome session today. And now I'm going to hand it over to Raychel to get us started.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces around the screen. For anybody I don't know, my name is Raychel Reily. I'm the Chief Health and Wellness Officer at the Kaplen JCC on the Palisades in Tenafly, New Jersey. I've worn many hats around the JCC field and quite a few, including Athletics Director, Fitness Director, Maccabi Delegation Head, General Manager, and now Chief. So no matter how far removed I've become from that athletics, a passion of mine has and always will be sports and recreation. So let's be honest, COVID hit JCCs hard, and with athletics in many cases taking an extra hit with extreme precautions around youth sports and contact sports. So much so that many JCCs have even let their athletic directors go or repurpose them in many other ways. I'm sure many of you are wearing multiple hats right now. So for today's session, we'll be hearing from 4 of our colleagues in the field who may have all taken different paths or may have come from different starting points, but have successfully navigated through COVID. So we've designed a list of topics and questions based on feedback from the field, but if as we're going, you come up with any additional questions, feel free to add them to the chat. We'll try to work them in or address them at the end. So today's session, we're going to cover some big questions. How have we adapted to the difficult situation over the last year? And hold on one second. Drop. All right. How can we navigate? Calling me, sorry. We're multitasking already. There we go. How can we navigate out of COVID successfully? What successes, lessons do we want to take away from this or keep in our repertoire in the inevitable post-COVID future? All right, so we've already introduced our panelists. We want to dive in a little bit deeper. So we're going to hear from all of them about staffing structure in their department now, pre-COVID, facility, and current restrictions. So I'm going to start off with you, Kyle.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Kyle Berger, Vancouver Jewish Community Center. We are the biggest little JCC out there in that our Jewish community is not so large, 25,000 or so, but we have a full JCC pool, fitness, theater, auditorium, early childhood education, library, all other Jewish communal organizations in our building. And we are actually really excited because we have big plans in the works for a brand new JCC in our current location that hopefully in the next 5 years or so will come to fruition, and that's going to be really exciting. I oversee the sports department as well as the JCC Maccabi games, as well as many other things right now, but I'll get into that later. What else in terms of my department, obviously we have coaches or umpires, officials, referees, and all of that stuff, but I am essentially a one-man wrecking crew for my department, both with regards to Maccabi and JCC Maccabi and the sports department. And in terms of where we are right now, in Canada, things are a little bit slow with our vaccine rollout. So we are pretty much where we've been for the last 4 or 5 months, which is our JCC is open, but everything is per appointment and very structured in terms of who is in the building and who's not in the building. But we are serving our members. Big difference there. And we have people coming in every day, obviously, and using the fitness center and the pool. And we have children's programming, and our ECE department is running, but certainly nothing close to full programming. And for the sports department specifically, it's tough treading right now because obviously a lot of our leagues and athletics can't run as they normally would.
I can imagine. All right, heading over to Josh, who I think is in a little bit of a different situation in Dallas.
Welcome to Texas. What's COVID? Oh, no, I'm just kidding. But Josh Goldstein, JCC Dallas. I've been here for 4 years. I've been in JCCs for about 7 years, was in Columbus before this. And so in my role, I supervise the gymnastics department, which has a team director, a recreational director, and a ton of coaches. And then I also supervise our team sports department, which we have some coaches and then referees, scorekeepers. I also work with JCC Maccabi. I think my co-delegation head, Raychel Wagner, is watching this call as well. And so that's kind of what's going on here. At Dallas Early Childhood Center, senior department, fitness, pool, 8 tennis courts, 3 basketball courts, gymnastics gym, ton of group fitness space, 3 basketball courts. I don't know if I already said that. So we have a ton of stuff that normally goes on here. And we are really getting kind of back to that, fortunately. And it's, maybe I'm a little bit of a peek into the future for a lot of the other JCCs around the nation as your areas continue to have fewer and fewer COVID restrictions and the comfort level of returning out to large public spaces increases.
Wonderful. All right, keeping the sunshine going, over to Tucson with Mallory.
Hi everyone, I'm Mallory Shenker. I'm the Athletics and Aquatics Director for the Tucson J. I've been in this role for almost 2 years. Previously, I was in Richmond, Virginia at the Weinstein JCC, where my role was in camping, sports and rec, and aquatics. Before COVID, my department was a little larger as far as full-time employees that were helping run programs and overseeing part-time employees. There are about 2 other full-time folks that were helping handle the now programs that I totally oversee. So I provide a lot of direct service and supervise most of our adult and youth sports programs, but I also oversee coaches that help run and facilitate those programs as well. Things like pickleball, basketball, soccer, and gymnastics. And we have a few independent contractors as well that run our youth tri team and our tennis departments. So our facility, we're multifaceted, just like all of the other J's around the country. We have an ACE department, a children and youth department, large camp, pretty large Jewish life and learning. Here on the sports and wellness side, we have a large gymnasium, 2 full-size courts, 2 squash courts, and 2 racquetball courts, which I know is kind of unheard of at this point for people to still have that many. We also have 2 fitness studios that are attached to our gymnasium. So there's a lot of activity that happens in that space. Outside, we have 2 fields that are used for soccer and softball, and then 6 lake-hold tennis courts, full-size courts, as well as 3 junior tennis courts that are also lined for pickleball. I am running all these programs at a limited capacity. Slowly but surely, we're loosening up our restrictions as more and more people are getting the vaccine and as our local restrictions are lifting.
All right, and last but not least, Terri.
Hi, everybody. Well, I dream of having a facility the size of like Josh or Mallory, but I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, so we're a tad smaller. I am the sports, fitness, and recreation director, so I oversee everything from our fitness center and pool to all of our sports programming, JCC Maccabi, and beyond. So it definitely keeps you busy. I've been in my role for almost 18 years, which is frightening because when I first took my job, I thought I'd be here a couple years, and then you blink your eyes and you're still here. But most days it's awesome, so I can't complain. Our center has a full basketball court, fitness center, indoor pool, outdoor pool located at our site where our camp takes place. We have a racquetball court that actually does get pretty good utilization. We're kind of, I guess, stuck back in the dark ages here. We have a spin studio, group fitness room, and use some other rooms around the building as well, just to try to fight for space. So For us, our staffing definitely changed over COVID. We let go of our full-time fitness person. So I'm currently supervising a bunch of part-time people in fitness, in addition to all of my normal fun. So we are definitely a limited department at this point, but we're surviving and doing great. Our programming right now is slowly coming back. We were able to offer certain things, but as Mallory had said, at a reduced capacity. And we're just trying to keep fighting through and finding the good stuff in everything.
I hear you, Terri. All right, so let's dive in. The first topic I want to discuss is rebuilding and reinventing. So Mallory, would love to start with you. Tell us more about how your department has changed through the pandemic.
Yeah, I touched on this kind of in my introduction. So we've had 2 full-time people that are no longer with us that helped run adult and youth sports and rec programs. So now all of that is under my umbrella and my direct supervision and responsibility. On top of that, programs have just adjusted and changed. So we didn't need as many coaches or referees, scorekeepers, things like that. So our staff just got a lot smaller. And in addition, I'm providing some direct service. So by providing that direct service, that's been a great way for us to lower our costs, which has been inviting for people to come back into the building and start to do programs again. They're able to come back in at a reduced or lower rate because I'm the one leading the class. So it's been a great way to have people get back in.
Absolutely. All right. So Kyle, would love to hear how your role has changed over here and any other responsibilities you've taken on.
Oh, okay. I would love to tell you. So our JCC, we're very lucky that our JCC executive made a bold decision when everything kind of shut down at first last year to keep everybody whole and active and engaged as much as possible, which worked very well for all of us, obviously. But for me, as obviously there was no sports running at the time, I started to get very involved with the marketing side of things. Started working on video work. I learned to do video editing, which is a lot of fun. Started getting involved with the virtual programming and the tech side of all of that stuff. And one of the keynote, most exciting things back in spring and summer is I was part of a program, I guess. We started a kind of a video blog that we called Bagel and Locksdown. And we came on 3 times a week and we talked to different professionals in the community, whether they were involved with the JCC or not, and had a little bit of fun with that and really engaged with people. So we found all sorts of different ways to engage with the community and get our virtual programming up and rolling really quickly and really well. Yeah, so that was a big thing. And for the last year, I've just been doing I think the 2 biggest things that I'm working on right now are a writing project about the history of our JCC and a big dance festival that's going to be coming up later in May that I'm putting together all of the video for and everything like that. So it's been a lot of fun actually to have this opportunity to engage with different departments and try different things. And so, yeah, I mean, I am still the sports guy at the JCC, and that won't stop, but it's been certainly interesting engaging with a lot of different things.
So tech has really actually taken you away from that. Definitely going to need to look at that blog. So Terri, let's steer away from staff a little bit and talk about volunteers. How have you used volunteers?
So that's a great question. When we were dealing with losing staff, we really had to rely more on part-time staff, but also volunteers playing more of a critical role, from planning certain events that we were still having, whether it be virtual events or our smaller in-person events as we've started to get back open, to coaching in our programs. So one of the things we looked at with volunteers was what age group of volunteers really were able to volunteer their time and not have crazy restrictions and as many concerns because of COVID. So we have some better volunteers who are more that senior population who just weren't comfortable, obviously, helping out. So we took the turn of really utilizing our teens. And we pulled from our kind of Maccabi age group to help coach in our programs for like the itty bitty basketball, some outdoor workout programs, and they were amazing. The kids love working with the teens needed the volunteer hours anyway for like National Honor Society. So it was kind of a win-win. But we realized how important it's going to be to continue to utilize volunteers as we rebuild, especially because we don't have the budget to pay for more staff.
Love that. So not only are you helping your bottom line, the budget, but really creating community and keeping those Maccabi athletes involved, as I know we're all trying to do without Maccabi. So keeping with the theme of reinventing and rebuilding, Josh, would love to switch things over to you and hear about programs.
Yeah, so we were fortunate, and I know some other Jays were as well, to be able to run in-person camp last summer. And that really helped serve as the model for returning to programming come the fall. And so we actually launched very specifically our gymnastics program in as much as normal as we could. So it was smaller class sizes. There was screening and temperature checks upon entering the building. There was mask wearing and distancing within the gymnastics program. But we were returning to, as many lessons and our full team as possible. And, we really, wanted to make sure that they could get that gymnastics experience that they normally would with COVID restrictions in place. And so that's been something, and it hasn't been the full size that it used to be, but our gymnastics team was about 3/4 of the size that it was previously, and our lessons were about half the size that they were, but it was what we were doing again, and we wanted to make sure that we could give everybody as close to that experience as they could, and we similarly did that eventually with some of our youth leagues, especially outdoor sports soccer. We offered that in the fall. We had a couple teams take us up on that. And then this spring, after the success and with the vaccine, we saw a close to return to where we were with our youth soccer program prior to COVID. So just kind of maybe, a peek into the future for everyone as they start to return to more normal programming. It could start off smaller, but with success, you'll see the increase as it grows.
Well, that's encouraging. Kyle, similar question. How are you rethinking some of your existing programs during this time?
So one of the kind of positives I tried to take out of this was an opportunity to try different things. Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. Why don't you go on to someone else? Because my fire alarm's going off in my building right now.
All right, just, handling whatever's thrown our way, as we all do at the J. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about events. And I know our first session with Stephen about events was super helpful, but want to touch on this slightly. So Terri, can you tell us about your corporate Olympics?
Sure. So we started our corporate clash about 5 years ago. I kind of seen some YMCAs that had done something similar. So basically stole the idea, like most good ideas we take from others. And we made it our own. So we do have corporate members here. So this was a great way to engage our corporate businesses and pull them in a little bit more. The way we run our event is it's like a one evening business Olympics. So the first year we did it, we only had 3 teams. By 2019, we were up to 10 teams. So we saw significant growth over those first 3 years. And then we could not do it this past year, but looking at this coming year, so far of the 10 teams from the past, I think 8 have already committed. So we're off to a good start. But the way the night works is everyone gets a team t-shirt. So it's like the red team, the blue team, kind of like a junior Maccabi setup for those familiar with that. And we require teams to have at least 4, maximum of 12 people, and they compete, whether it is in a distance run, to a distance in swimming or spin bikes, to a water balloon toss, cornhole, tug of war is always a big one. Every year we kind of switch up a few of the events to make them a little different, keep people guessing. We do a lot of funny, silly relay races that you might do with kids, and the adults love it because it's an excuse to just be goofy and have fun with your coworkers. We've been able to engage our local police department as well, and that's been really helpful in our relationship with them, as well as our local fire department. They've both put teams in. And the feedback we get every year is how much fun it is. People love the idea of it. it takes little effort leading up to it now that we've had it established. I have my rule book and everything else, and I'd be happy to share the information with anyone looking to do such an event. But it has been great exposure for the J to be able to pull in some additional members from our corporate businesses who have then gone on to join our center because they've come in to see the business now, and they realize we do have something to offer them. So overall, we make some money off of it. We're starting to look at trying to find a bigger sponsor in order to become more financially impactful with the event, but it's just been a lot of fun.
I love that. And I'm sure that post-COVID now, there's so many companies out looking for that gathering, a team building event to be able to recreate that cohesiveness amongst their team who's been virtual.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great idea. Hopefully things are okay in Vancouver. Nick, I think we lost Kyle. If you want to just give me a heads up when he's joining us again.
He's going to come back in a couple minutes. He's going to try to set up outside.
Got it. Okay. Hope everything's all right there. So let's talk a little bit about technology, gaming technology, virtual. I know esports has been super big and we've seen a lot of opportunities throughout COVID. So Josh, let's tell us about how you've utilized esports.
Yeah, so to go back a little bit, back in April, March last year when everyone was shut down, just trying to keep that engagement piece going on. The low barrier to entry for esports, if your teens or tweens have the technology at home, just allows you to do what we probably do better than anybody else in the industry, which is schedule. So I sent out to all my Maccabi kids and some other kids that we had about who wanted to play in an esports league. We wanted to see who wanted to play FIFA, who wanted to play Madden. And we got about 6 kids that wanted to play Madden, and I scheduled about a 6-game regular season followed by a playoff, which we're all very well good at doing for all of our youth and adult leagues, and put the onus on them to find each other on Xbox Live or over the internet on PlayStation, and they played their games, and we successfully ran a league. And it's something that we haven't gone back to yet, but it's something that I know we can either once again get with or keep going in the future. And I think also the opportunity to partner with Lost Tribe is still out there for us, and we're looking at some opportunities to maybe even have them come here in the future and set up a tournament here, because I think this esports thing is a great way to get the engagement piece, especially with people who might not, want to come to your facility right now. So it's still out there for everybody who might be shut down or have less people coming in. It's something that we were able to effectively use. And I know that, Terri, I think, emailed me after I told her about it to try to find out how I did it. So I don't know if you're using it yet, Terri, but I definitely would recommend it if you don't have that people entering your building yet phase or limited. And
so I love that, Josh. What would you say to somebody who has never done esports before, or maybe you've said this to Terri? Where would you tell them to start? How would you start this program?
So number one, I think that you have to realize that your kids and your teens have done esports, and they're the experts in terms of actually running the games. And don't be afraid to rely on them, especially if you have some trusted families who you can get in touch with. But second, I'm a basketball guy, but I feel like I've run some good soccer leagues or run some good softball leagues in the past, because our job is the organization, the scheduling, and all that. So that's what your role in this is. Get them to sign up and put together the schedule, and they'll know best on how to actually operate the game, and you can learn from them on that. Additionally, Google has a ton of resources. There are Madden leagues that existed. There are FIFA leagues that existed, or whatever other esport that you want. Search on Google for the rules for the league, figure out what makes the most sense for you, use the teams as the resources, and then use your strength as a communicator and a scheduler to put in an organizer to put the league together, and let them handle the playing of the game.
That's great. Kyle, welcome back. Is everybody okay? You're on mute.
Here we go. All right, I'm gonna get my stuff together here. Yeah, the alarm is still going off. I have no idea what's going on, but we're all whole.
All right. Okay. So if you're ready, we talked a little bit about events. Would love to hear about your sports dinner fundraiser. I remember you talking about this 2 years ago in Orlando at ProCon. How did that change with COVID?
Okay, so that is actually a really cool story because, yeah, again, part of our JCC's kind of decision to try to carry on as whole as we possibly could, they explored this event, and we've had our sports dinner fundraiser has been huge over the years. We've had Shaq, we've had Jerry Rice, we've had a lot of really good speakers come in and done really well with that event. So this year, what they did, which was a key, was they reached out to all of the key sponsors that have been involved historically and asked for their feedback and their input on what they thought about doing a virtual event. And they were shocked to hear that a lot more sponsors than they thought were really interested and excited about the idea of still doing it. And so with that in mind, they went forward and they found that a lot of the sponsors were really pleased with the fact that they were reached out to, that they were asked for their input and their thoughts. And some of those sponsors even contributed more financially than they had in years past. So at the end of the day, they probably had about 60% of the sponsorship support that they would have had at a full gala event. And probably pulled in about 60% of the total, net revenue for the event, which was huge considering what's going on right now and the financial challenges that we all have. And I know that a lot of other facilities, whether it's JCCs or other type of facilities, opted out of doing their big gala or their big virtual events this year because they thought people had, virtual fatigue and Zoom fatigue and whatnot. But we ended up putting together a really incredible show. We had Magic Johnson on as our guest speaker. And I'll tell you straight up, he was still really expensive, but there's no way anytime soon we would have been able to afford Magic Johnson coming to Vancouver. So this was our opportunity to have him. They raffled off a car, the 50-50 did, all of those things did better than ever because they sold tickets for much cheaper. So, $36, anybody could come on, and it ended up having, more than twice as many people engaged in it as we've ever had in the past. They still did online live and silent auctions, and some of the big sponsors were able to have kind of like breakout rooms with their clientele, with their guests. So they were able to feel like they had some of that social time with their guests as well. And they literally reinvented the event wheel this year by doing it the way that they did it. And I know that they worked themselves tirelessly, but it was a huge success and something that our JCC is really proud of. So I encourage everybody, if you're still looking at events that like that you're not sure if it's going to work or if you can do it, to not just give up and not just quit. Because I think one of the really big keys was that when they did reach out to the sponsors and the people that they needed the support and the love and they got it. Just by asking and engaging in that conversation with them. So that went a long way.
So I think, we all now have you as a resource, which is great. But the big question, where do you start when you're looking to get a Shaq or a Magic Johnson? What do you do? Where do you begin?
You just got to start walking down the street and hope that you happen upon Shaq and that he says yes. This is an event that our JCC has been running for 28 years, I believe, and started small and has built from there. And every year it kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. And as soon as we saw that the financial support was coming in, we were able to go bigger and bigger in terms of securing the speakers. And of course, there's a, out there, there's a network of agents that work with these speakers and these presenters, and all sorts of different ways that you can do it. Some of them are really good at standing up there and talking for 30 minutes. And some of them you have, a local sports media personality sit down with them and do a Q&A with them, or whatever it might be. But what we do every year is we have a big fancy schmancy guest speaker come, and then we also honor somebody in the local community for who's contributed to sports in Vancouver, not necessarily Jewish. Like, to me, I always think that it's unbelievable that arguably the biggest sports event of its kind in the city, because I don't think that there's anything, even with the Vancouver Canucks, which is everything here, they do a big fundraiser every year. It's not as big as the JCC Sports Dinner. It's sponsored by, the key sponsor is one of the biggest banks in Canada, and it's a massive event. And it always blows me away that it's our JCC that is running this massive event. But you start small, you start with anything that you can get and build your way. But again, really the key is to get the right sponsor or sponsors who, this is something that really speaks to them. You get them on board, and you can. It's unbelievable. You can really do anything if you focus hard and get that going.
Rachel,
Awesome.
real quick.
Go ahead, Terri.
No, I was just going to say, before we moved on, I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Josh had said earlier about esports. So when we were preparing for this panel, Josh had mentioned the esports thing, and I did follow up with him, as he said, and got some information. And I am a much more in-person kind of sports girl and not so much an esports person at all. And I've kind of avoided it up until now because I don't know a lot about it, and I know, though, it keeps growing. So thanks to Josh's help, it kind of motivated me. And just for someone else, if anyone else is interested in starting out, I'm working with one of my former Maccabi athletes who's big into esports, and he's going to hopefully work for us and help us run our first esports league this end of spring, early summer. And then we're also looking at, based on the experts of like my 3rd to 6th grade girls who all play Roblox constantly, and all I hear about from them is them talking about it, doing something in that realm as well. So I now have 6th graders that I'm like answering to, it seems like, but there definitely is buy-in, and the parents are like all in and wanting to see their kids do this. So I'm hoping in 2 years I can report back some good successes on it.
Love that. Kyle, gonna actually keep it on you, the question that we had missed earlier. How are you rethinking some of your existing programs?
Right. So as I was starting to say, it gave us the opportunity to try different things. And I know, I'm sure we've all have programs that have run for many years a certain way, and you've got people who are very engaged with it. And if you were to ever try to do something different, they would freak out and say, "Why are you moving my cheese?" So this gave us an opportunity to look at everything and say, hey, anything we've ever wanted to try different, let's do that. A big example for us was our ice hockey league, of course, Canadian, so ice hockey is God here. And that's our biggest, by far our biggest adult sports program. And it's run for many years in a certain way, and it's really cool the way it runs. We have a whole draft system, and every player is ranked, and the captains draft the teams every year, and it's really cool. Players of all levels playing together, and it's fantastic. But for the sake of community, we took the opportunity in the fall, when we actually were able to play hockey for a few months, to try a completely new system where, still using the ranking system so that the teams were balanced, we literally drew the teams together, drafted the teams out of a hat. And it enabled a lot of players to play with completely different people than they might usually play with. And there were certainly some people who decided to stay away because they wanted to play with their group of friends, and they didn't really care about meeting new people. But that worked perfectly for us because we couldn't, because of the COVID rules, we couldn't have all of, half the people that we had in the past. So it actually worked out really well. And we ran the league in the fall, and it was fantastic. I mean, the people really appreciated playing with people that they had typically played against for so many years. And it was really exciting and fun for everybody in there. Now there's a lot of people saying, hey, we should do this again. So now I have that kind of headache. But as I said, we're looking this summer with our softball league that we hope we'll be able to run to do kind of the same thing, changing some of the rules of things that we've always kind of wanted to try, but people were too afraid to do. But this gives us that opportunity to really rethink a lot of things and try something new. And if people don't like it, we'll just say, when this is all over, then we'll go back to the old ways.
Absolutely. So yes, this is the time now to make changes you've always wanted to change. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So first, let's talk about target market. So we recognize that the audience is changing, and we want to make sure that we're adapting with them. And things even within the JCC have changed in terms of priority. So priority level, structure, budget, all of these things are changing. So Josh, let's hear from you first about how your target market has changed over the last year, and what are you doing to attract this new market?
Right. So, one of the things that we saw as schools reopened in person, and yes, we still were recruiting for our normal kind of elementary into, intermediate level youth sports stuff, was that some of the schools and some of the families didn't want an extracurricular activity to impact their child's ability to attend school. So if, someone came to our basketball or gymnastics program and somebody else there had COVID, they would have to quarantine for 14 days or 10 days, depending on, at what point the CDC made their changes. And then they couldn't go to school for that time. And rightfully so, parents thought school was more important. But one of the things that we knew is that we have a school in our own facility. So we, our early childhood was up and running, and the students weren't leaving their classroom. So if they were in a class of 10 to 12 kids, everything they did was within that. So each one of those classes became a target audience for all of the enrichment programming, whether it was gymnastics or dance or our theater arts program or the sports, the more typical sports, soccer, basketball, t-ball. And so we made sure that the schedule for our early childhood students within our own JCC wasn't conflicting. So the gymnastics class for room 10 was not being offered at the same time as the sports class. We were no longer competing against each other within our own building. And everybody within our building saw this explosion within their early childhood enrichment offerings for them. And so we've actually probably made more money off of early childhood enrichment during COVID than we ever did before COVID. And we're going to keep that schedule. And I think what it's also going to allow us to do is once we start really allowing, people from other early childhood programs to come back in, is it's going to be able to expand the early childhood offerings that we have, not just for those that attend the JCCs preschool, but the synagogues and other early childhood programs around us in the area. And then we can take that and really build that to allow for, that's the entry, and then they'll come to us for our other programs because we get them in early enough. So that's kind of really refocused our target audience at the beginning here of the early childhood, and take that and make that a stepping stone to the other programs that we offer.
Love that. I think that's something we noticed really a lot here in New Jersey, and we weren't able to capitalize on the opportunity, but we saw that multiple schools no longer had the capacity to run their own after school programs, and were looking for somebody to do it for them on their facility, on their campus, where they weren't having to cross-contaminate, if you will. So you never know. You may be looking at different synagogues in your area that want you to run their programs for them on their sites. And, I view this as, we're only expanding our opportunities. So it's as if going to your athletics director and saying, instead of one gym, now you have 4 gyms, and you're going to get to run these programs in all these different places. So love that concept. Mallory, talking about target market, how have you retained members throughout the pandemic?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And it's a tricky game with membership, trying to balance what you're offering and keeping it safe. So when we reopened our doors in June, we didn't want to offer too much that we were going to that, or too much, then we were going to have to take it away, right? So strategically offering different areas of your building back into service, or the number of reservations that are available, strategically laying that out in a way that you're never going to have to take it away from them, because that never feels good to give something and then have to take it back. So we tried to find opportunities as soon as possible to give members usage in the gym or around our facility to make them want to reinstate their membership once we came back from being closed. So membership options, we have you can put your membership on hold for X amount of time, adjusting memberships to be month to month rather than, full long packages. So the membership side of things, we, kept our options open for them, and then rolling out different areas of the building that were available for services or different things at a pace that was appropriate and that was safe. And that was really appreciated by our members. We got a lot of great feedback when we first came back that everyone was grateful of how cautious we were taking things. A lot of new members came to us because they were trying to get back into their gyms when things were opening up, and their gym wasn't taking any precautions seriously. No masking, no distancing, no visible sanitization of their surfaces. And that's something we were really key on and didn't waver, haven't wavered on, still really strong with our mask policies and sanitization, distancing, and keeping capacity small. So that has kept people here that were, coming back and wanted to stay safe, and also brought us new people who had been elsewhere in the community and not seeing those precautions taken, and they were seeking a safe place to be able to stay healthy. So that brought them here to us. And as things have changed in Arizona, we are again getting that feedback still that people are very grateful that we're keeping things safe, and so that they can feel safe when they're here.
Absolutely. One thing you mentioned about switching your membership to month, that's something that we've always wanted to do. And COVID basically gave us the okay to do that. So I'm sure there's many Jays around the country that were able to finally make that switch to the month to month. Mallory, I'd love to stay on you for one more minute. I'm talking about the usage in the gym. So you're talking about trying to maximize the space and get everybody in. What does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, so when we first rolled out gym reservations, just to give you a little insight of how the building's structured, over top of our gymnasium is our fitness center. So you can see into the gym from the fitness floor, but there's no one in the gym monitoring members during their time. And we all know that if we don't want to wear a mask, we pull it off of our face. Well, in the building, you need to have your mask on. So having members watched in the gym is important. So we were hesitant to, just let people have time in the gym without them being monitored. So we slowly let reservations come in when we knew that there was going to be enough people in the building to make sure that they were all staying safe while they're in there. But we have a reservation system on our website. We work through Group X Pro, where members can see when the gym is available for them to reserve time, up to 45 minutes a day, all throughout the day. And there's different number of reservations that are available based on different programs that are going on. So, and it's ever changing. So I just got kind of the thumbs up that we can increase the number of reservations per hoop. But originally it was just two people per hoop, and you had to make the reservation together. So, potting individuals at our different basketball hoops, not mixing groups together. And again, there's no one in the gym actually monitoring them, but there's people around making sure that they're following protocols, staying masked and staying distanced from one another. It's been a slow road to kind of bring that service back, but people are super appreciative. And we've been listening to them. We've taken their feedback whenever it's given to open up more things.
Love it. Kyle, how have you utilized the pandemic to foster more internal partnerships within your JCC?
So for me, it goes hand in hand with the earlier question about the different things that I've kind of gotten engaged with and had the opportunity to do. So one of the reasons that I jumped on the opportunity to do these different things and to learn these different things was exactly that, to get more engaged with different departments. So I'm spending actually some time in the fitness department, helping out there, because then obviously we don't want to have to be able to, pay for part-time staff to be able to coming in. So a few staff are working in the fitness center itself, which I'm doing. The projects that I'm doing with the marketing and the virtual and the social media have given me the opportunity to engage in some way with honestly every other department in the JCC. And that's really given me incredible insight on what's going on. I've learned so many cool things about what other departments are doing or have been doing that I honestly would have had no idea. And it's unbelievable, 17 years now that I've been at the J, and you go and spend some time with another department and you learn some incredible things that they're doing. And, it breaks down those silos that we talk about, that we all live and breathe in. So any opportunity that you can find to do that, I highly recommend.
Love it. So let's switch to facilities. So I know throughout COVID, there's obviously restrictions on your facility and how many people you can have in your space. And I'm sure many of you all around the country and around North America, Kyle, including you, many of you probably have fitness equipment in your basketball courts, or many other departments have taken over your space. So Josh, I know you touched on your gymnastics program earlier. Would love to hear how you managed to successfully keep that gymnastics program going, even with spatial restrictions.
Right. No, that's a great question. And I think one of the things, and Mallory, I think, really touched on this, is even if you're in a state in which there's fewer COVID restrictions, and there are some places that might not still have masking, or the sanitization isn't important, we at the JCC want to make that a major part of what you see and what's going on. So, distancing and masking has been a huge part of our gymnastics program all year long. And so we made sure that within the gym, equipment pieces were 6 feet apart. And for the floor area, we put additional markers down. So when they're stretching or when they're working on their individual tumbling skills, they're doing it 6 feet apart. And we actually, all our gymnasts are masked, and they really, actually, for some of the team gymnasts who was their first time performing, they preferred that. They went to a meet and they kept their mask on so that the judges didn't have to see how nervous they were. And so they really adapted to that well. And, smaller, we knew that we might not have as many people as we normally would have, because we did smaller group sizes. We weren't going to just say an unlimited amount of kids can get in and we're going to try to fit you in. No, we had hard caps on our group sizes so that we could keep them 6 feet apart. And if someone needed to have a drink, they were doing it 6 feet apart, from them, so that they weren't so close together, to really help limit the spread if the virus were to come into the gym. And we've seen it. We've actually had a few of our staff who unfortunately did have the virus, but none of our gymnasts did from that. And so we felt like that was a sign that the distancing and the masking was actually working, despite the virus coming into the gym at one instance during the year. I will also say that that's also limited what we can do with parents. Parents are not allowed to come in and watch, where before they were. So what did we do? We created a closed Facebook group, and we videoed the last class of the year, which is normally Parents' Day, and they get their award. And so then we posted that video to the closed Facebook group, and the parents could watch it. Well, what's been the feedback on that? Not only did they get to watch it on that day, but they could show it to family members who could come over and watch on that parent's account. And so that video lives for that gymnast to see again and again and again. And then there were some gymnasts who wanted to go to outside meets. We had other gymnasts who wanted to didn't want to leave our gym. They felt safe in our gym. They wouldn't feel safe elsewhere. So we actually created virtual in-house meets where we've been videoing the gymnasts and their teams performing, sending that video to a judge. And that judge has not only been scoring it, but has been sending back comments on areas that they need to improve, which if you into gymnastics at all or know it, you don't typically get that feedback for a judge. So that's something that we might even look to include for next year for new gymnasts or early in the season to really get our gymnasts enjoying this. And families took advantage of that, where they received the video and then they hosted like a medal ceremony for their daughter, because they don't get that at the in-house meet, but they kind of recreated that at home. So we really said, okay, we're going to use technology and we're going to make sure we have smaller groups and spacing to ensure safety, but keep that same gymnastic experience or as similar as we could for them. And so that might be something that if you haven't opened up yet, you have to think about in the initial stages, that it's going to be a little different, but you can still provide that same feeling.
I love that. What added value, the feedback from the judges, that's really great. So I know Mallory spoke about reservations before in Tucson, but Terri, I'd love to hear from you about your reservation system and how you're utilizing it.
Sure. So we also obviously have been limiting size of any groups anywhere in our building. So we've used Sign Up Genius and actually have had really good luck for it. We did use the paid version, but we use it from everything from the pool, fitness center, racquetball, basketball court, and our group fitness classes. I look forward to the day when we don't need it for fitness center. I think it's an added step for members and they don't necessarily love it. But on the flip side of that, I think we will continue doing it with the pool and possibly the basketball court and racquetball court. People love it. We've had nothing but positive feedback. It took people a little bit to get used to doing it, but that they now know that they have a lane for themselves when they come in to swim and that they're not playing that guessing game of will I or won't I, has been just tremendous. We found the same thing with the basketball court, racquetball court. It makes all of the reservations in one spot. Everyone can access it. It's nice and easy to obtain, and they now have guaranteed space when they come in. So I think going forward, that will continue, just because it's been a real added bonus, I think, for our members.
Absolutely. Actually, just to piggyback off of this, here in New Jersey, we actually partnered with UPace, who created a custom app for us, the JCC OTP app. I know many J's around the country are using the MyJ. And a couple big things have come out of this. You talked about keeping the reservations for the pool. So one, we actually put out a survey to our membership and got about 80% of our current swimmers alone actually responded to it. They love the reservations. They want to keep them. They would love to have more and it to be easier, but it's all about member experience and managing their expectations before they come. How frustrating is that to gear your kids up, head to the pool or head to the basketball courts, and it be swamped and you not have a spot? So knowing ahead of time before they come, I think is huge. We're looking at potentially keeping those reservations the way they are or flipping gears and using it on the back end. So UPace has the capability for members to take a look and just look at capacity before they come over. So even if members coming through, we check them in. They don't need a reservation. We put them physically into the fitness center. You at home, you could see how busy it is before you come. Tracking has also been a huge opportunity coming out of this. I can tell you right now how many members are using what part of our facility, when's our busiest week, when's our busiest time of day, hour, all of those things. So tracking has truly been huge, and we look forward to really continuing to use that post-COVID. Terri, I'd love to stay on you a little bit longer talking about outdoor space during the pandemic. What have you guys been doing in Harrisburg?
So we're not lucky to have been able to do it all summer long like some people here on the panel, like get nice weather all around. But we were really lucky to look to move some of our programs outside, both in the fall and now again in the spring. From our Tai Chi class, where we roped off a part of the parking lot and they love it, to having some kids' sports programs outside that before would have been inside. One of the things we found is that members really responded well to it, not only because of the safety with COVID, but also because they were looking for programs to be outside. And this is something we may not have known otherwise. So we've really been able to get a better pulse on what our members want. And I think moving forward, there are ways to do more things outside that we never would have thought of in the past.
Absolutely. I think outdoor fitness, at least, is here to stay. I know we've already been doing a bunch of this in athletics with fields and courts and things like that. But even in New Jersey, we actually put in a more permanent fitness structure on our tennis courts. Outdoor cycling, absolutely here to stay. We've just been loving it. So Mallory, big question for you. I know I personally have been keeping track of all the CDC updates and mask policies coming soon. So I know Arizona is one step ahead with that mask policy, and the restrictions were actually lifted by you. So how has your JCC responded to this, and how are you communicating any of those policies to your members?
Yeah, so we are unwavering in our mask policy at this point. We still feel that it's the safest to keep everybody masked when they're in the building. We have a medical advisory committee that's made up of board members and doctors that are a part of our community that got together at the beginning of the pandemic and helped guide our decision-making process throughout this whole time. And they are slowly but surely starting to think about when masks may not be mandatory here in our facility, but at this point they still are. And we let our members know that. We are really clear that that as a community and with that board, we're critically thinking about when the best time is to get rid of the having masks be mandatory in our building. And we communicate that regularly through member newsletters, via email, face-to-face communications. So when members come into the facility, we remind them about keeping their masks on. There's visuals all around the building to keep their masks on. I am constantly feeling like I'm reminding everyone to keep their masks over their nose. But it's something that, we're really committed to. So communication about it is key, and letting them know if and when changes are going to happen, this is how they're going to happen and how is it going to affect them. So proactive communication is ideal. And I mean, as soon as that mask mandate was lifted, we had members reaching out. What are you guys going to do? What's going to happen? Are you guys changing anything? So people are concerned. So if you're able to stay ahead of it and proactively communicate, it's the best.
Absolutely. So I think that some things may start to change as vaccinations are rolling out to even more populations. So one of the things that actually really came up on our survey that I had mentioned before is the members that still have not come back yet. The biggest thing that will get them to come back is herd immunity. It is not themselves being vaccinated, it is herd immunity. And so one of the things we actually did here in Tenafly that we were fortunate enough to have with UPace, our app, was they added in an icon for us of vaccinated or not to their membership badge that they would swipe. So we are not requiring every member to tell us if you're vaccinated or not. However, if you do tell us and you have that icon, it's a much smoother, quicker process to come into the JCC. You no longer have to get asked the question. So a good chunk of our members are now telling us if they're vaccinated. And we're hoping to potentially get to the point where we can even say, we've reached herd immunity at the JCC. With the masks, it was interesting on the survey. More members were comfortable taking off their own mask, but they weren't as comfortable with others taking off their masks. So they want to come to the J and take off their mask, but nobody else can. So I think that this vaccinations and herd immunity could be super, super helpful for us. So let's kind of switch gears a bit to Reemerging PostCovid. Josh, so you've been able to, as you've touched on already, really largely restart your sports programs over the last few months. So what does this look like at your JCC? Are there any changes, constraints in your programs? Or do any of them look similar to what they did post-COVID to help us gear up for what's in the future for us?
Yeah, and I think in a little bit, you're going to have me touch a little bit more on specifically the adult men's basketball stuff, which we've actually been up and running since October, so for everyone to know. But just in general, and then I can kind of get some more specifics in a little bit. In general, the big thing is that once you get to the program, it is looking very similar to how it did prior, with probably the biggest exception being some masking and some social distancing, in programs that allow it to be. So, as I mentioned, the gymnastics, trying to keep more people 6 feet apart, similar maybe during some of these tennis lessons. But the big thing is the entry. So the screening process, not coming to the J if you just feel even a little bit off, just not to take that risk. The temperature checks, the limited spectators, those elements are probably what's the most different. But once you get into the, the gymnastics gym, once you get into the basketball gym, once you get to the soccer field, we really do have it looking a lot like it did prior. But we feel confident with that because we've communicated very clearly that if you don't feel good, don't come, not a big deal. And if we have to do a reschedule, we'll do a reschedule. We really want to be flexible and work with you. But if you're stubborn, it makes it more difficult for the program to run, and we may have to shut down the program for 2 weeks, or we may have to quarantine your specific child for a couple of weeks. So it's kind of this back and forth trust that, we're going to keep everybody as safe as we can. We can't guarantee anything, of course, but we're asking you to be honest about what's going on. Has anybody in your family been exposed? Or is somebody not feeling well that day? And we've really, with that, our members have respected that. And that's allowed us to make a lot of our programs look as normal as they did prior once you get to that point. But we are really harping on the screening and the temperature taking and that trust back and forth, that you're going to bring a healthy participant to the program.
Thank you, Josh. So let's dive deeper right away into that men's basketball league.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
So, and going back to what you said about surveys, this is what happened. Knowing that outdoor sports and outdoor activities were safer, we sent a survey saying, who wants to play outdoor basketball? We don't have an outdoor basketball court. We were potentially going to make a makeshift one out of a parking lot that's on a hill. And so I had some concerns about that because, a 12-foot three-pointer from one side versus an 8-foot three-pointer from another side might, really make the difference in the outcome of a game. But what we got from this survey was about 50% of our participants wanted to come back for indoor basketball. So now we said, okay, our members want to come back and play. How can we create it? So what were some of our concerns? Number one concern was the safety of the rest of our members entering the building. So we decided that if we're going to do this, the individuals coming in for basketball had to have their own entrance to come in and their own exit to come in and their own bathroom to access, where they would basically not be coming in contact with any other member. So if we were going to run basketball, it was basically their own kind of bubble within the JCC space. They were not going to come in contact with people who were going swimming, people coming to the fitness floor, people to come play tennis. They just weren't going to come to them. So we used the emergency exit doors in our basketball gymnasium as the entry and exit point. We assigned a specific person to be a screener. So that's different than any of our scorekeepers. They were to make sure that these people were on the rosters, and they were to make sure that those individuals on the rosters had filled out the screening form and got their temperature taken. Everybody was to be masked until game time. Now, that doesn't necessarily prevent it, but that way, in case somebody else bumped into them, came into the court, whatever, we could get that person out of the court and make sure that the individuals there, were the only ones. And then at that point, they played the game and then they exited through the doors, and the next teams couldn't come in until everybody exited the building. So we were even keeping the league itself separate, where people were not intermingling between multiple teams. So if we had a case, the biggest thing for us was contact tracing. If we had a case, which we did occasionally have a case, we ended up shutting down the league for 1 week, which was going to be 14 days a time. So, if there was a Thursday league, it would be 2 Thursdays where we played our next game if we had a case. And so we would miss 1 week and push the league out that extra week. And what we were able to do then is contact trace. So if there was a case in the 7 o'clock game, we knew the 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock games were not an issue, but that everybody from the 7 o'clock game did have to quarantine for the 14 days, or eventually it turned down to 10 days once the CDC guidelines changed in that regard. And so we've been able to run the league and contact trace. We have had probably about 4 or 5 total cases that have come up within it, but we quarantined those groups. We limited the spread because of that, and we did not see the spread go beyond to other areas of the league. We were then able to restart 2 weeks later, and we've been running the league since October, and have continued to do so. And then with vaccinations, it's made it better, and we're actually getting a list of individuals who are vaccinated. And if they want to come play pickup, we have a specific time that has vaccinated only pickup games where we have a screener. And we're allowing that now. So we are really starting to build back to what it looked like before. I'd be happy to discuss this in more detail as people look to either open up pickup games or their leagues, if you have some specific questions. But that is kind of how we did it.
Thank you, Josh. I know I will certainly be picking your brain about those vaccinated only times. I'd love to stay on you, Josh, and ask, what was it like with rescheduling when you had to quarantine 2 teams? I'm sure those teams were then playing other teams the following week. Would you recommend planning for an extended season? What was that really like?
Right. So when we had that situation, we did shut down the entire league for that week.
Got it.
Because I think at the time we had a 6-team league, which is about half the size of what we normally would have had, which is what we expected from the survey. And so that would have impacted 4 games. So instead of just having 2 teams play 1 week, we said, okay, the whole league shut down and we're going to extend out the season. And what we said to all of our teams is that we would rather teams stay home and we will work on reschedules or pushing leagues out. We're expecting this, then somebody risk it by coming and playing. So if your team can't make it because of COVID 1 week, let us know. We'll let the other team know. We would all rather not play because of COVID and keep the league running than have to shut down multiple leagues for multiple weeks due to an infection. So
Got it.
that is definitely what we did. We did plan that these leagues would take longer than normally scheduled. And if they didn't, then that was a benefit.
Got it. Thank you. So Terri, and correct me if I'm wrong here, so you have not launched your travel teams yet, but you're gearing up to launch your travel teams.
We had some of our travel teams this past year, so you're partially correct. But I give you full credit because, I mean, come on, you deserve it. So we are big basketball people here, and we still had our middle school girls and middle school boys travel team this year. Our younger age group, we made more of an intramural program out of. Our high school boys also played, although it was a very much reduced schedule, and it was interesting. So my biggest thing I learned is that just because you're following the rules of what your state is saying doesn't mean who you're about to play is. So I definitely highly recommend checking with your opponents ahead of time. So my middle school teams play a lot of smaller, either private schools or smaller like Christian-based schools. And we found that numerous schools kind of felt they didn't need to follow rules and were just playing unmasked and everything else. Well, I'm not going to comment what's right, wrong, or in between. My directive was we had to wear masks, and those we were playing had to wear masks. So we had to really reduce our schedule and do a lot more creative things in order to make it a fun-filled season, but it still ended up working out. So knowing what others are doing is very helpful in that planning process. So having conversations with athletic directors is key. One of the other things we did this season was we didn't allow any spectators. Depending on the game, it's kind of a coach's stream depending on situations, but it was definitely a weird feeling having the gym so quiet. But we did Zoom every single game, and it was awesome. So we had families being able to watch, including relatives who otherwise never would have been able to get to a game. So grandma in Florida was watching our games. It did add a whole other element for the kids. And I feel like we didn't really miss a beat. So while I look forward to getting spectators back here, I think we'll continue to probably Zoom the games in the future, because I think there is value to allowing other family members to watch and then being able to hopefully have them want to contribute to your programming.
Love that. So sticking on Reemerging PostCovid, Mallory, What did COVID give you an excuse to get rid of that you think you're going to get rid of permanently long term?
Yep, so we had PACE as a regular reoccurring group exercise class for our senior citizen population, and it was in one of the studios that's attached to our gymnasium. And that population was kind of the last group that we were really enticing to come back to the J, especially in a group exercise situation. So we took that opportunity to get rid of the PACE equipment that was way too old, and decided to nix the program from our schedule entirely. The equipment has been donated and is being well loved and used elsewhere, and we have decided to, we've successfully changed that studio into a gymnastics studio, gymnastics and ballet. I have a coach here who teaches both, and she's busier than can be. We had a small gymnastics program before COVID that was just for our preschool, focusing on preschool gymnastics, but this coach now is coaching kids all the way up to 13. It's just her. It's a one lady show at the moment, but she's doing really well. And having that dedicated space has been great to give that program the opportunity to shine. Another thing we were able to kind of get rid of in our gymnasium, we have lines for pickleball. We have 4 courts that are set up, or lines that are set up on our courts. And having pickleball in the gym was a little bit of a pain point for some of our members that wanted to use the gym for basketball. So having these outdoor pickleball courts or outdoor junior courts that are now lined for pickleball, we were able to say no more indoor pickleball, it's only outdoors. And under the scope of it being a COVID precaution to be outside, it was well received. So we are not going to bring pickleball back into the gym likely, which will be great so that we can keep the gym open for other things.
Love it. So along those lines, I don't know how many folks around the country still have racquetball. I forget how many years back went from 4 to 2 racquetball courts. And in that time, no joke, we had picketers outside our JCC. The racquetball population is a small group, but a very vocal group, and they picketed that. So we ended up keeping 2 racquetball courts. Those 2 racquetball courts now are personal training studios and extensions of our fitness center with COVID. And between the repurposing, our racquetball users who we love have now found other places to go. And we also learned from our survey that although they are a loud group, our racquetballers make up 0.5% of our entire membership. And also on our survey, we found that 80% of the personal training clients would like to stay in a private studio post-COVID. So absolutely exciting for me to potentially be able to nix racquetball for the long term here in New Jersey. So as we're starting to wrap up, would love to get to hear from everybody on some other thoughts, really just some advice on how we can come out of this stronger. So would love to go around and hear from you all. What is the best advice you can give out there to your colleagues today as we are emerging post-COVID? So Kyle, let's go ahead and start with you.
My advice would be somewhat contrast to earlier when I was saying this COVID is an opportunity to try different things. I think when you're coming out of it, I think a good focus is to really play to your strengths. I think that's always generally good advice for departments. I think too many people put a little bit too much effort into constantly trying. And I know we all get a lot of pressure from the powers that be to create new things and whatnot, but as you're coming out of COVID and rebuilding your departments, really my advice is play to your strengths, the things that you know are going to go well, the things that you know are going to be supported in your community, get those things up and running, and then you can start reinventing yourself again.
Thank you, Kyle. Let's go to Josh.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you everyone for coming and listening to what we all have to say, and really appreciate you taking the time and looking forward to continue to connect with everybody afterwards as well. I think listening to your members, listening to those people who participate in your program, and not just taking their feedback, but taking their feedback and processing it through the lens of what your J can do and where you have people in the facility that maybe, now you've connected with it, maybe you didn't connect with before because your staffs might be smaller. And as Kyle's mentioned, all the different areas that people help out in, and finding ways to create things that might be the same type of strength program that you talked about before, Kyle, but that you can even make stronger, and to entice them to come back, and reminding them that of the community that you created prior that they need now, because we have been isolated. Even as people have come back out, it still hasn't been as easy or as smooth getting together with people. So as you come out of it, the J is so important, and our programs are all about creating community. That's what adult sports is about. That's what youth sports is about. We have this opportunity to create teams and communities and groups that may have never gotten together without us. And so find those people in the J, listen to the feedback, and really create that community again.
Thank you, Josh. Terri.
I would say that to be open to change and not stuck in what you've always done. So maybe it comes from being in the same job for so long. And I think it can be true for many of us that, oh, well, we've always done it this way, ends up coming out of our mouths, or from maybe your boss's mouth or from members' mouths. And I think COVID has taught us that we can truly adapt to different situations. And as we come out of it, I think it's important to look at what were the COVID keepers? What were the great things that we found from all this that we want to keep doing? So whether it's having your game zoomed, keeping reservations to make members' lives easier, but not being afraid to make some changes to programs that have always been long successful for you and make them even better. So I think that to keep being open to new ideas is kind of what I would suggest.
COVID keepers. I like that. I'm going to use that. Mallory.
I would kind of mesh some of those pieces all together. What Kyle was saying about playing to your strengths, listening to your community, what Josh was saying. I also think that it's super important to recognize that your people that you put into your programs make the program. So playing to your strengths, knowing what you are good at, what you can run well, and then surrounding yourself with other people who can help complement you, and that are extensions of you to help make your program run well. Sometimes, a few of us have said we're kind of one-man shows at this point, or one-woman shows. We wear lots of different hats, but making sure that you have a team of people around you to help keep your programs running, because we feel like we can do it all sometimes, but we can't. We need help, and to make sure that you have that help that really helps elevate your program.
Thank you. What great words of wisdom. I think a pick me up that we all could use. So as we're just wrapping up, I just want to thank all of our panelists today, Josh, Mallory, Terri, Kyle, for joining us. Thank you to Nick Tosh and Gabrielle from JCC for making this happen. We really hope that you were able to at least take just one thing back to your JCC to be able to enhance your department. But just to reiterate what Josh had said, today was really about starting the conversation. So all of the panelists, including myself, are here as resources for everybody. We are open to sharing everything from full program plans to budgets. I know I personally have partnered with many around the field and look forward to keeping that going. So I'd like to ask actually all of our panelists now, if you could just put your contact information in the chat. Feel free to reach out, keep these conversations going. And look forward to hopefully when we can do this all again in person and in sunny Florida. Nick, any final words for us?
Yes. Well, I want to take the time to thank all the panelists, as well as Raychel, who couldn't thank herself during that spiel. It was wonderful putting this together with you guys. You guys are incredible professionals, and it was just a really exciting program. I think that one of the big things that ProCon shows is just how many amazing people are in the field. For all of you up here tonight, everyone here watching could have brought incredible things today as well. So just keeping these conversations going with everyone is just, there's so much of what we do is similar in some ways, and the ideas that we can bounce off each other can only elevate the field even more. So just a really exciting program, and thanks everyone for coming. I do have a couple pieces of housekeeping before everyone goes. After this at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 11:30 Pacific, you have the first opportunity for our enrichment electives. They're just an opportunity to check out a little bit different things. You can check the Spot Me agenda for the 15 sessions to choose from. I'll be at the Becoming Our Best Selves Jewish Mindfulness and Medot practice session, which should be really cool. It's based on a group that is being offered to JCC professionals surrounding mindfulness. It's really cool. After that, our colleagues are our best teachers from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern, 1 to 2 Pacific. Join us for the JCC Excellence Showcase. In each 30-minute session, your colleagues will share JCC initiatives in programming, staff recruiting and retention, visionary management, marketing and media, offering a great opportunity to learn about initiatives that can be replicated in your JCC community. Stephen Gray, who spoke last week, is going to be highlighting a program, but there's others as well. It should be really exciting. And you can find more information and links to the sessions on SpotMe. Beyond that, quick reminder, the virtual vendor hall will be open again tomorrow if you didn't get a chance to check it out yesterday. And that's from 1:45 to 2:45 Eastern time. During this time, sponsors will be available for live, engaging, and informative video breakouts. You'll see product demos and have an opportunity to ask questions about how vendors' products and services can best help your JCCs. I personally checked out the Free Motion Fitness booth yesterday. It was a really cool product. Might be worth checking out. Beyond that, I would really urge to utilize the SpotMe app. There's some really cool ways to communicate with each other. We have our J Cafe sessions later, which are another chance to use the technology to sort of hang out through the platform. Again, I want to do one final thanks to our panelists, though. You guys did an amazing job. Special shout out to Kyle, who managed to stay with us through an emergency at his apartment. But thank you guys all for being here today, and really looking forward to seeing what all you guys are going to do in the field in the future.